Hi everybody. This video is going to show how I make my jellyfish pendants. And I just wanted to give a quick hello to Noor from Istanbul. It was your suggestion to make a jellyfish pendant for a video, and so this one's for you. So I have most of this video sped up because it does take a long time to make these pendants. And I apologize because this pendant didn't come out the best shape, and the jelly came out pretty good on the inside, but it didn't come out to be a really great shape, and it took me longer than usual because it's been over a year or so since I've made a jellyfish. And so my second one came out better and quicker, more smooth video, but my camera died like before it got to the end, and so I lost that video. But anyways, what I first do is make the tentacles, and I squish down a flat Maria disc at the end of a glass rod, and this is about a 10 millimeter, and I'm doing this in soft glass. You can also do this in boro. I have like about a 10 millimeter rod, and I have another rod on the sidelines that I'm going to use later because I'll punty up both ends of the pendant. And so all I do is place a lot of teeny weeny tiny dots. I have a very skinny stringer. It's probably only a third or a half of a millimeter thick. And I'm placing itty bitty dots, and they can be varied. Some can be smaller, some can be bigger. And I'm just placing them all over the bottom of this disc. And I make an implosion to create the little tentacles for the jellyfish. And so I tried to zoom in so you could see this much better. I was trying to face it the right direction. But all those little tiny dots. And so now I'm going to heat this up. First, I'm just going to melt in those white dots. And of course, if you do glass, you know that the white turns clear when it's heated. So they're hard to see. But now I want to start imploding it. And so what I'm doing is I'm on the left side of the flame, so it's the opposite side than you're looking at. But I'm just heating that clear around the edge of the disc that's sticking out. I'm not heating the bottom. I'm trying not to heat the center of that disc. I'm just trying to heat the edge and have it droop down. And so the center of that Maria is going to stay higher up. And you'll see like little drooping on the edges around the edge. And that's what you want to cause an implosion. And so I just pushed it really quickly flat there, and I'm doing the same thing. And I have this sped up. It's about twice as fast as normal, I think. And so I was trying to show there how it's dimpled in the center, but it's really hard to see. And you just continue doing this until you actually start seeing the white coming up into the glass. It comes up about 1/8 of an inch, 1/4 of an inch, and you'll start to see it. And it's starting to come right there. You can kind of see it a little bit, but a little bit later, I think after my next push or two, I'm going to zoom in, and so you can see it really well how it's coming up inside the glass. But I just keep heating this, and as you could see, the Maria's getting less wide, and it's getting thicker. And that's basically how you make an implosion. As you make it, it gets skinnier around, but thicker. And so here's a zoom in. See, you could see that they're coming up into the glass. And that's basically all I need for this jellyfish pendant, because I'm going to manually pull them out because I want them to stretch and elongate. I don't want, this kind of looks like a little flower with a bunch of little petals, and I don't want that. I want it to look like tentacles. So first I'm just going to melt it down and let it droop just with gravity. And it's not, you can't see the white right now because it's hot, but it'll come in. And I'll show that. See, there it is. It's coming in. But it still looks kind of flowerish, even though they're longer. The little petals are longer in there. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to stretch this out. And this is going to make it look more like, wispy little tentacles on the bottom of a jellyfish. So I'm going to pull, and I keep pulling. I keep heating a little bit on the back side, on the bottom side of those tentacles, and I keep pulling until I feel that they look right and they're the right thickness. And you can also twist this if you want. You could twist it around and make your tentacles twisty. I tend to keep them mostly straight. I might twist them a little bit, but I keep them mostly straight. I think I got a little bit of twist in this, but not much. And so now I'm just pulling off the top excess glass, and I'm just making the tentacles as long as I want them for my jellyfish. And after you do that, I am going to be using silver glass for the cap of the jellyfish, and so I want to add a little white at the top there. So if any of the glass is transparent, it won't be seen through. So that's why I add the transparent, and now I'm adding a layer around of the silver glass. And I'm actually making this go down a little bit more than the white was down, so there will be a little transparency on the bottom of the jellyfish. And then I superheat this. I'm using striking color silver glass, which is my favorite glass. And I superheat it, and as you can see, it just looks clear right there. And all you can see is the white underneath. But now as I strike it in the very back of the flame, you can see it turning yellow, and then eventually it'll turn brown, and then it'll turn purple, and then blue. So that's what I'm doing back there, but I'm also prepping the other rod I had on hand. And this is also about a 10 millimeter. And I want to get a nice big gather of glass on there so I could cover that cap. And so I'm doing both at the same time. I'm kind of going back and forth. I'm striking that silver color, and I want to get a really brown to just barely turning purple. So when I encase it, it'll still be purple or at least bluish, and it won't turn, muddy, ucky yellow again, which sometimes happens. But as long as it's really dark, when I encase it, it usually ends up pretty good, like at least a blue or a blue-green, which always looks nice for jellies. And so now I have it at the striking color I want. So I'm basically heating up that ball. I'm going to smush it onto the top, and then I kind of push it down around. What I want to do is cover that whole cap. And when I heat this rod off right here, I want to make sure that rod is super hot, and I'm not pulling any of the glass from the cap, because if you start pulling that, you're going to distort your cap. It's not going to be nice and rounded. It's going to start pulling upward and get pointy at the top. And I don't want that for my jellyfish. So you make sure you heat that really well, and then just let the glass pull apart kind of by itself without pulling any of your pendant and stretching your pendant out. So now this is where it kind of took me a while, and I have this sped up really fast. It's like over 2 times fast, because I'm trying to add mass of glass. I usually don't have that much of a problem with these jellies, but it's been so long since I made one that I'm just adding glass, and I'm trying to add it around the cap and stuff without adding any bubbles to it. There are bubbles in it, but I'm trying to avoid any really big bubbles that would cause cracking. And I'm just adding just a mass of clear, because I want to get a nice clear section around this jellyfish. So you'll see the jellyfish will be the center of attention. It'll be floating in this glass. So I'm just adding glass around it, and I'm melting it a little bit as I go and adding more glass where I think it's needed. And I'm trying to put where the jellyfish, where it's thinner on one side of the jellyfish, I'm trying to add more glass there, and less glass to where it might look like there's more on the side of a jellyfish, less glass there. So it kind of keeps it centered, if that makes sense. And so, yeah, this took me longer than usual. I don't have usually that much of a trouble, and I had a big bubble there I was pulling out. But I usually don't have that much trouble making my jellyfishes. But for some reason, And this one didn't want to didn't want to cooperate. And see, it's all crooked and everything. So I have to fix this. I have to straighten it out and try to even it out. And I do eventually. I kept at least the jellyfish in a nice shape at the end. So that's the important thing. If you have to add mass around it to make it centered, because sometimes it will go off center, that's fine, as long as you try not to distort the shape of your jellyfish into something that you don't want. So now I have 2 holding rods, and this is so I have more control over that center mass of glass, and I could try to heat it all and get it evenly pulled out into the shape I want. And so I'm tapering the bottom there. So I am pulling the tentacles just a little bit more, not much, because I'm heating below that area, but it does pull the tentacles a little bit more, and that's fine. So I noticed that the 2 sides from the head of the jellyfish down, it seemed to be too thin. The glass surrounding it seemed to be a little too thin. So I'm adding a little more here, just so that I can have a little wider pendant at the end. And so I'm doing that, and now I'm flattening the back. So you look at your pendant and you decide which side looks the best. What side do I like better? What color do I like better? And you want to flatten the opposite side if you want to put a background on. So I like to put backgrounds on, and right here I'm putting 3 stripes of green, and I'm wiggling the stripes to make it look like it's seaweed in the background. And they have a little bit of green aventurine in there, so it gives a little sparkle. But you don't have to add a background. I could have just melted this into a teardrop shape and just had a jellyfish floating in the middle of a clear glass teardrop. That's fine too. So you don't need a background, but I like to put different backgrounds just to give some variance to your jellyfish. And then some people like certain colors. So if you like a green background or a red background or a black background, you can add different backgrounds and have a variety of different jellyfish pendants, which is really great. But you certainly don't have to do this. And so now I'm adding, after I put a couple of wiggly stripes of clear aqua. Oh, and I don't know what I did a accidental zoom thing or something with my camera. But after I put those aqua stripes on, I'm putting some turquoise on the background. So this is basically representing like ocean color or watercolor. And so I'm just putting this around the background of the pendant. So there's the front of the pendant. And then you have the back, which has all you see is the aqua color or turquoise color. And now I'm going to punty up again with the other rod, but I noticed that I had a little skinny section there, so I'm adding a little more glass to the side to kind of fatten it up and even it out with the right side. And I'm also going to melt down that side glass I put on earlier to try to give a little more mass to the sides. It seemed like it was just way too thin there. But it's however you want to do this. I could have added a bunch more mass at the bottom and just had a teardrop shape. But the way I make mine, and you don't have to do this, of course, is I like to taper mine down to a point at the bottom. But certainly you don't have to do that. You could just leave it rounded at the bottom, or and you don't have to put a background. You can have it just floating in clear glass, which is really cool. Because then whatever shirt or anything you're wearing would show through and be magnified, but the color will show through for whatever pendant you're wearing. So basically a clear would match any outfit. So that's good too. But anyway, so I'm trying to shape this, and of course I didn't get a perfect shape on this. I was a little disappointed. And then I tried to film the second jellyfish I made, and that's when my camera like totally died on me. I mean, it like burnt out. I think it overheated or something because it was really hot. So it might have a short in it. So I'm not sure if it's going to work. It turned on again, but I'm not sure if it's going to work. So I don't know when I'll have more videos after this series that I'm done with are over. But so now I'm shaping a bale. So I could have done the little ball thing where I use my pinchers, which is my favorite. But in this video, I was going to show how to make a little hook bale. So you kind of make a little hook shape. And then I just manually bend it around. And then I end up pulling that glass down and touching it and smushing it onto the background. And you want to make sure that's totally fused. So it's all one piece. It all flows together. And then I'm just shaping it with my little tool. And after that's done, now I want to straighten it out with my little paddles to make sure your bale is not crooked when it hangs. You want to make sure it's straight in line with the rest of the pendant. So that's what I'm doing here. Trying to straighten it out so it looks straight with the pendant. And it looks pretty straight. So now I'm going to heat the back and then the bottom. And I'm going to start tapering this down. So I'm giving it a little bit of pull. And the bottom part was sticking up a little bit. So I'm actually pushing that back down, because it was starting to bend upwards, and I want the whole back flat. Didn't want it sticking down. So now I'm tapering it, and I'm just pulling it out to the point I want. It's however you want to do it. And I could have made this just rounded. I didn't have to pull it out to a point. Could have been a rounded bottom. And there's a little close-up. It's kind of grainy and hard to see, but there's a close-up of the finished jelly pendant. Thanks so much for watching. Hope you enjoy.